5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. This is Mythical, back with more Mythical podcasts. It's been a while. Actually, it will have been a while because Season 2 hasn't been posted as of the time of recording this, but you can ignore that.
We recorded that weeks ago.
Either way, it's been a while
It's
since a
it's
Mythical
almost like
podcast.
We're students at college.
It's almost like we have lives
Yeah.
that kind of happen. But anyway, we're back, and we're going to be blasting through Clone Wars like no tomorrow, so let's get through this.
Don't
I'm here.
hold us to that statement, though.
Yeah, maybe not,
It's
but
almost never correct.
either way, I'm here with the usual crowd of Connor and William has given up, and we're going to be talking about Season 3 of the Clone Wars show, where things start to get very juicy and interesting. So, yeah, I guess, William, you wanna kick it off, or does anyone have anything to say before we start?
No.
Cool.
I began with what I think are like two of my favorite set of episodes, just in the entire show, because it's the clones. I think the clones are my favorite part to watch and like experience with the show. That's why we started with Clone Cadets and ARC Troopers. What I really love about Clone Cadets is that it's like, oh my god, there's such this interesting story here. Ooh, who can we connect it to? Ooh, the moon base. That's a good set of episodes. Oh yeah, but some of them died. Let's just sort of like right around that fact. They make Heavy and Cut Up two of the most like, oh my, I love those characters a lot. And like, I like the way that like Cut Up is just sort of approaching this, where like he's failing and failing and failing. And he's just like trying regardless and whatnot, and like Heavy's more of that, just like, yeah, keep with it, you're like, we got this, we can continue on. And like the one scene, like so many great scenes in this. Those are the two that died already. Like literally the second episode, ARC Troopers opens with them going, back in Camino, this is great, isn't it? And then like fucking, oh my god, the what, not 99?
99, yeah.
99.
Yeah.
I thought it was 99 walks up, was like, oh, hey guys, what's up? Where's Heavy? Oh. It's like the first thing he asks, because at the end of Clone Cadets, Heavy hands him the thing and says, "You're one of us too. You're like you are one of the best clones that I know. We're brothers. You're gonna have to give that back to me when I return." And then like literally he's already fucking dead. Dave Filoni, I will never forgive you for that scene.
I'm pretty sure Cut Up dies in one of my episodes then, too.
I thought
No.
Cut Up
Did he die
died.
before
He
that?
died.
Cut
too.
Up-
No,
before
Cut
that.
Up
Got
I
eaten by
was
the
like,
worm, right, or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
oh my god.
I still have a bunch of clones that die in my episode.
Yeah, you
And, like,
you
one
get
of-
through the rest of them.
I will not say that like all of them are like super. Like the main ones everybody knows: Cut Up, Heavy, Echo, and Fives. And the god, there was another one. Jesse.
It's kind of towards the end, but no, that's one. That's one.
I don't
Seriously.
think Jesse was part of
Not
Domino.
in that Domino. Oh, yeah.
That's just Anakin's 501st Legion, but I forget
notable.
who the other one was.
It was Droid
You
Bait.
say five.
Droid
Right.
Bait was the other one, and like I had to. It's funny, like I really love these episodes. I forget Droid Bait exists, and I was like, man, okay, so which one was he? He literally was just like one of like the offhanded deaths. Like they were like, yeah, we'll just add Droid. Why did you need to add Droid Bait as a guy that retroactively like has already died within the show? But overall, I just really like. It's not even like the militarism that I really like about the clones. It's more so they have this such interesting life and existence of what they need to do and go through. And that's what's so compelling about them as characters, is they essentially have had to create their own community through this whole process. Like, they are never like, they know what they are from beginning to end. And like that's such an interesting way of approaching life, because unlike the droids, they are allowed to express themselves in different ways. They are supposed to be fodder. They're just kind of supposed to die in many ways. That's why like it keeps going, and like that's why it's so amazing to become an ARC Trooper, because an ARC Trooper is something that matters within their whole thing. But then they've already like developed like their own like languages. Even the smallest thing is like calling them shinies. So interesting to me.
They have their own culture in
Yeah.
the war. Yeah.
Slang.
And then like
It's a lot like the
clankers.
doughboys in
clankers.
like World War One and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, it's so interesting, and that's kind of what I do like when they touch on it in Bad Batch, where it's, again, I haven't watched the most recent season, but like a lot of that community stays there, and and we see a big dive into that. The fact that they don't call like Camino like where they're made, they don't have like that view of it. It's like, oh yeah, they don't even hate it. They love Camino.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's it. They refer to it as their home. The clones are some of the most like interesting ideas that Star Wars ever has produced for me, because it's, God, because they're fighting a war perpetually, it seems, for like those 3 years. Their goal is to stop the production of their entire race.
Essentially, whether it's something they're aware of or not is
Yeah.
another thing, but I think they become aware near the end, like Rex in season 7's like, hey, yeah, I've only ever known war, like
Yeah,
that's
like,
my
what
purpose,
happens
what
after
am
all of
I?
this?
They have this accelerated life rate, and literally the war has been happening for most of their lives.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, they've been producing these clones for like some time now. We know that. But many clones are still being produced. The war happens. Some of them are alive for maybe a few months.
Yeah.
Because the war happens, they go off to war, they maybe get a year of life. And all of that life is contained within like this single, like these few months. They're like but they're not born without meaning. And like that's what like keeps them like existing in that way. And it is this interesting comment on the military. Like that is what, like, they're the ideal soldier. How fucking sad is their existence?
Yeah. They don't have personality or really
No.
lives outside of the war. The lives they have are what they've made with the other soldiers, but they don't have families to go back to or anything.
And so, like, it's so interesting to me to watch as, like, a bunch of guys, like, have, like, this wonderful meaning. Where I think the show does somewhat, like, talk about this, because there are later parts where it's just kind of, how sad is that? Like, you're just expected to die for war. But also, all of them still refer to each other as, like, brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And they and
Yeah,
for...
like the nicknames they come up with each other.
They don't
And just,
go
like,
by
that
their
sense of
codes either,
camaraderie.
yeah.
And like how at least Fives doesn't like there's so many that like don't have names. They're all looking for their names. Like it really feels like Fives lucked out by getting that, like getting CTC 5555. But like Cut Up doesn't know what his is until he gets punched in the gut.
Nice.
Like, oh God, like I wish I had like the name of the guy in front of me. Like one of the meaner bounty hunter. I also like that the show has a mean bounty hunter and a nice bounty hunter training them.
Good
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
What a great. But it's the sense, the nice bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, will
that's-
later become the Mandalorian, but that's neither here nor there.
Or the book of Boba Fett. But we're not gonna go there.
No, what I don't. That's not
what
a show.
am I talking about?
Listen, I'll make the trade that I won't acknowledge Book of Boba Fett, but I will acknowledge Andor. How about that?
You know what? Yes, please.
Acceptable.
That's,
All right, then I'll never watch Andor.
This is acceptable. Oh my God.
But it's just the clones to me have such like this. They have like this richness of culture that's like so sad, and they're like one of the more interesting ideas. And like ARC Troopers is one of my favorite episodes of like any piece of animation, maybe like any show. And so the Camino attack. Clone Cadets is one of my favorite pieces of like television.
ARC Troopers is the Camino attack episode.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
It's really good that they place these after one another. And that's how I love to watch them, because it feels like this is Clone Cadets is like the flashback to why we're so like this is so important.
Yeah. That's interesting.
ARC Troopers, like, it's one of the few shows where I'm like, it wasn't intended for it. I think it really helps with that binge model. They probably played them, like, back to back, I could assume. Like, it was usually an hour block of Clone Wars when it was played, if I remember.
For this season premiere, they started with those 2 episodes. I remember this when it came out.
I do remember watching these ones,
And I do think the second episode, at least, it does do a good job of, like, going, like, all right, now we're back to this. Like, you would still be able to feel a lot of the emotions felt, but by God, and this is where, you're listening to a Star Wars podcast if you're listening to this. You've probably seen the fact 99, his death, it's rude that they do this to me. Like, do you remember how 99 dies?
He's like trying to help, and
he's trying to help.
He gets
and then
down.
Like, do you know what the quote about his death was?
What?
I'm pretty sure it's he was just like one of us. Because 99's whole thing is he's born with, like, there was something that went wrong in his, like, cloning process. He's like framed as, like, this old man, but he's like it's the exact same thing. Like,
maybe he was, like, too accelerated in his aging, maybe, or something.
I don't know why. I think it may have just been some issue, but, like, he could, like, barely walk. He was, like, the janitor essentially, but, like, that clone culture is so ingrained where it's like all of them feel like they're brothers. Nobody ever shits on 99. Like, I think that's the other key thing. The most, like, antagonism is from the other squad that's, like, that literally calls that says the iconic line, "Let's go watch the dominoes fall." Also, God, and this is one thing to say. It gives off these 2 episodes, and this is maybe why I love them so much, is they give off Ninja Turtle vibes about just, like, it's about brothers, like, trying to be a better team.
I can see it. I
like that. Yeah,
it's a good way to describe it.
It feels like Ninja Turtles, which also is what Bad Batch is. Bad Batch is just kind of Ninja Turtles,
and all of that's basically just 18.
Yeah.
It's all just 18.
Yeah.
But no, these 2 episodes, again, I think they work so well together. I mean, the attack on Kamino is really great. You get both Asajj and Grievous in, like, the same thing, though it does.
That might actually be a first for the show.
Well,
put them in the same battle like that, right?
It may have been, but it's basically like Grievous is doing his own thing, and then Asajj is doing a thing. And mind you, it brings up one thing I've mentioned it before, but I want to mention it again because in this episode it's very obvious. The writing issue that episode 3 put the entire Clone Wars in.
With the Anakin
cannot ever interact with Grievous because Grievous says they never met. In episode 3.
That's so funny that it's, like, set in stone.
They were gonna make a bit about that in one of the deleted episodes. I think it was on Utapau even, and, like, there was a joke where Anakin turned his head and Grievous was behind him, but then Grievous, like, moved to the other side so he couldn't see him. So they were, like, literally that close to meeting. Like, I think that's a little on the nose, but
I
would have allowed it. That'd be funny.
No, that would have been so great.
Like, that doesn't mean they can't see each other. They just probably would not have a formal introduction. That's all.
They obviously both no. They've never, because Grievous says you're, like, much younger looking than I would have expected.
Well, they do see each other though. In one of the episodes where Grievous gets defeated by the Gungans, and then Dooku lures Anakin to capture him, and then they do an exchange. Anakin, I think, is unconscious, but Grievous is very much conscious, and he could probably have turned his head and looked and seen Anakin.
Well, he might have not known it was Anakin.
He might not have,
But it's just
possible.
Like, also, just, like, having those 2 there, like, really ramps up the stakes of, like, how important it is to, like, the clones, like, because it's like the 2, aside from Dooku, like, these are the worst people in the fucking world. Also, like, it makes me question, like, we could maybe talk about this at, like, also a later point, but I also think about how these episodes really do also at least affect, like, how the wider range of, like, how, like, Legends dealt with clones and whatnot, because, like, this is the beginning of where we'll get into, like, it wasn't necessarily brainwashing, because like Legends had it as, like, brainwashing. This was just it makes it seem more just like, all right, go on, do your thing.
Wait, what do you mean by brainwashing in Legends? Because
in Legends, it was framed as I have seen and I have read. It was not they had, like, any, like, psychic command. Like, literally happens with the chip in their brain.
They had like memorized orders, right? And Order 66 was just
it was
one
just
of
that they
them.
were like the most. I actually read the original Vader book that came out, like where it was just like where he was looking for Obi-Wan and like a lot of dealing with that. Not a huge story happens in that. It's just like a Jedi running away, and it's actually very like Kanan-esque, if I had to say whatever happens. But like there's a troop that we see for a little bit that's just like they get Order 66 and they go, that's stupid, and then they just don't do it, and then like
All right,
and
That'll show.
nice.
and it's and then the fucking, oh my god, there's a part where like Vader's like has them lined up and it's like, who didn't follow the fucking orders? and then like this guy from that troop just goes, me, I did not. And they're like, why? It's like, seems stupid. It's just like
Points for honesty.
and then I think they try to kill them and they're like, they fuck off and run away.
Oh my god.
I was
Yeah.
so it was
I prefer the mind control brainwashing chip. Actually, it's one of the few instances where I actually think that kind of element adds to it, because it adds the element of the psychological damage that they take from it, and the knowledge that they probably know what they're doing and deep down know it's wrong, but their mind is acting against their heart.
You can even see like Rex resisting that
Yes,
in season
yes.
7. I think like that
I
makes for
always
some nice
hated
story
that
points.
Cody was so nonchalant about
Yeah.
getting rid of Obi-Wan, especially. That to me is like where I think the chip fixes it, because Cody's just
Yeah, he
more
just goes,
into
"All right,
order."
cool."
Me
Yeah.
as a child, I loved Cody. For some reason, he was my favorite.
I was always a Rex. I
My
liked
brother
Cody.
was the Rex boy. So like Halloween, we dressed
Well,
up
then
as
you'd love
Cody
ARC Troopers.
Cody and Rex.
God, it was
Yeah.
such like a. I don't know what happens with Bad Batch. Here he appears. I don't want to need to know the specific things.
It doesn't do very interesting, but anyway.
But like, I always imagined it. I recently, you ever need like proof I am a fan? I recently didn't sleep. 2 days ago, I didn't sleep for May 4th. I
Yep.
just rewatched every single mainline Star Wars movie.
Jesus
You got through
Christ.
Rise of Skywalker too?
I watched that in the morning.
Okay, I was gonna say that.
I literally, I watched 1 and 2. Still tough to get through. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had to go pick up my dog, and then I came back, and then I watched all of them in a row. I had to go do stuff, and then I watched most of Rise of Skywalker at home, and then I have the studio job, as you know, and then I finished it up at the studio job. And yeah, but anyway, what I was saying is like, when somebody asked me like, oh, the clone thing was over, I always framed it as they are immediately able to justify. That's what the chip does. It's like, it's not that they are like oh, must obey. It's the told me to do it, and all of every other center of my brain shuts off that would say no to that. I love these episodes specifically just because they are about the clones. I really love the clones. And it's a nice peer into their culture, and I think Domino Squad is so much like Pathos to them that it's really funny that several members die already. And like, they're just like, oh man, that sucks for Cut Up. When he dies, when Cut Up dies to the worm, they're just like,
Gets cut up.
Like, what the hell? And that's it.
He just gets fucking eaten, and they're just like, that sucks. So, you know.
It's a different time back then in season
My
1.
episodes also take deaths in interesting ways.
But it's just funny, like, it's a dude that they were, like, brothers with and had, like, this whole fucking thing with, and then he just dies.
Oh,
and
boy.
they're like, aw, man, that sucks.
That's an L.
I've said really my piece about these episodes if you would like to go on.
Cool. Okay. Since the usual pattern has been either Connor, me, William, or William, me, Connor, let's do Connor next.
That
And
makes
then I'll
sense
go
because
last.
mine has things to do with clones.
Yes, and mine is first in the order of the season, but it doesn't matter if we do first.
Of course, it's
They're
not
they're
chronological.
irrelevant from one another.
Also, just
That
a
would
side
be
note,
silly.
I accidentally brought this, but it's relevant. I accidentally brought the best Lego Star Wars game.
Oh, dude.
Oh my god, the
I
Clone Wars
remember
one.
this.
Oh,
Dude.
I remember the R2D2 volleyball mini game on there. I think
No,
That's awesome.
unironically,
that was
it might be my favorite because it has Clone Wars stuff.
I loved that idea.
And this is the 3DS version that I didn't just accidentally bring the Xbox 360 edition.
I always loved the opening to that game on the Wii, though, with
it was pretty fun.
Petrarchy Arena.
I remember like playing that with my dad. Like I had just gotten it for Christmas, and like setting that up, and I was playing those missions was so fun. I loved
Opinion
that
that's
game.
gonna get me probably canceled before we transition into yours. The arena's done so much better in the Clone Wars game than it is in the Skywalker saga. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. These notes that you wrote.
These notes that I totally wrote and were not generated by AI, and there's actually no errors in them. They're completely perfect, especially the part where Captain Tarkin fucking dies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he does. To be fair.
He does die.
The ChatGPT or whatever you did to make this, it definitely read somewhere that Tarkin dies.
It's like, oh, yep, that goes here.
Yeah.
Explain what you did and just read it, and then we can like talk.
You know, like I usually generate my notes with AI just because it's helpful to like know where I'm going.
Not put the effort in. Okay.
No, I'm a busy guy.
I don't blame you.
This is what you do for school.
Most of these are crap, but I still brought them in because they were really funny.
I actually do want to hear.
Including like the
Not gonna
parts
lie.
where like Anakin and his team managed to rescue Master Piel, but at a heavy cost of several clone troopers, including Captain Tarkin, or killed during the scene.
My favorite clone, Will Tarkin.
Okay, yeah, no, I did the episodes, the Citadel, Counterattack, and Citadel Rescue, which is part of the Citadel arc, where basically Master Piel, which is like a short guy with big ears, some Jedi dude, and his captain, Captain Tarkin, who we of course know from episode 4 as Grand Moff Tarkin. They basically know these weird coordinates or ways to for this secret hyperlane, and a strategic hyperlane used by the Separatists, or none of them actually know where it is, but for some reason these two people are the only people in the universe that can tell either the Separatists or the Republic where it is. And so the Separatists captured them and are torturing them in a place called the Citadel, which is like this big Jedi prison that like even like before the Clone Wars, it, like you get context throughout the episode there, like it used to be used to hold Jedi, and like that's what it was for. And so apparently this information is really important, and they send this whole elite team of Obi-Wan, Anakin, Cody, Rex, and a bunch of other clones that, well, I get Echo's in 5, and of course Echo quote dies, and a bunch of other clones just normally die, and Ahsoka accidentally happens to be on the mission, even though she totally was not invited and lied about being assigned to it. But there's actually like a lot of interesting story points with that, because Ahsoka really wants to prove herself in a like dangerous situation. Anakin's really worried about, he doesn't want her to come because he's afraid something will happen. She wants to prove herself. Normal like Ahsoka trying to step up stuff, and she does, like she takes the initiative like in the first episode and is like able to open some Rey's shield door for them. But the entire like 3 episodes are very like cohesively a story. I watched one of like the numeral Joker like cuts of the episodes. Like you almost couldn't tell that it was going to another episode.
Wow.
Like these are very much all 3 episodes, which I'm pretty sure is why ChatGPT had such a problem trying to take each episode and come up with a synopsis for them and like different like different like note points. Like on episode 2, an intense space battle ensues with Anakin and his team fighting against overwhelming odds to protect the important cargo. Everything about that statement is false. The space battle, which was barely a space battle, didn't happen in episode 2. Anakin is not in space, and there's no important cargo. It's 2 people. So I kind of just brought this for fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I do also just at least want to laugh at how funny it is that the AI clearly knows Tarkin dies later. So it took the idea that like he's alive in Clone Wars, he's in charge of clones in Clone Wars at some point.
So he's a clone.
But he dies.
Yeah.
So they just that's the problem with AI right now, where it just takes all of that was correct information that it then just used to say like it's a clone. It can't make
it knows the clones died and knows Tarkin died, so it's just like
it's just really bad at making connections.
Yeah.
I think there's probably just not enough information written about cohesively on the line, so like it just had trouble pulling
One time I kind of want to do an AI reading of a script. Like I print out a script of something and it has like dialogue we each get a part and we read it. Like what Snapcube did. But with Star Wars or something.
We could have fun with that.
Do you know it'd be a really fun idea for a comedy that you could make at some point? An AI written, like, just find the worst AI and just have them write a serious quote-unquote scene.
Oh.
College Humor did, like, a similar thing where they had, like, an AI write a sketch, and it was just how bad it was. Like, it was, like, randomly there's a hole. And, like, that was, like, one of the plot points.
Great. I'll look into that.
We could definitely play around with that. But back to the Clone Wars and the whole episode. I think it's just really fantastic how the mission fails at every turn. Like they come in with like a nice like group of clones, and like every like 5-10 minutes, like one of them dies, and it's not like like just one of them dies, and they're like, oh shit, we lost another one, and like even like they're like climbing up these air ducts in the one scene, and like they all start the closing, and you see like one of the clones, but like before the air duct closes right in front of the view of the camera, and you just like hear like a clone screaming out in pain, and then Master PL like opens up like with his lightsaber, like cuts back to like where Obi-Wan is like above them, and he's like, yeah, we lost one, we should keep going. It's like and like each death is treated like differently. Like sometimes we'll get a name, or sometimes we'll just get Rex like looking at this one clone that like fell off a cliff. It's like, yeah, that kind of sucks.
Now I started playing Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Lego Star Wars, so I might just continue that as we talk.
Okay. All right, sure. I'll be talking about Mortis, and I'll just hear like.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
no, like the episodes are cool. Everything goes fucking wrong. Like a lot of people just die. They end up having to like send an entire rescue mission for the rescue mission. They have to send like 4 like Republic cruisers, and like each of them is like commanded by a Jedi, and they send like an entire like all 4 of those Jedis get in a fighter and a Republic gunship, and they go and pick everyone up, because this is just how fucked everything is at this point. It's just like it's pretty funny.
Kind of neat, actually.
Definitely, like, the whole interactions with Tarkin is really the interesting parts of these episodes.
Tarkin is, like, my favorite character.
I really love Tarkin in the Clone Wars. He gets really great later on, too.
I have the book. I still need to read the full book. But
I do too. Yeah.
Tarkin is legit one of my favorite characters, and it almost sucks that he dies on the Death Star. But
He's
then
just
I'm
such
like,
an asshole.
Yeah,
it's great.
He does have the perfect death, though, for his character.
Yeah.
He couldn't go out any other way. He literally, like, is on the Imperial battle station. It's, like, the biggest fucking thing the galaxy's ever seen, and he's, like, overconfident. It is too perfect.
Let's also not forget that, like, a dude walked up and went, hey, we're probably gonna die. Do you want an escape pod? He's like, on our moment of triumph? It's just like, no.
Opium at its finest.
He was like, it's gonna be fine. It was then not fine.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
But, like,
yeah.
Connor, if I may say, like, what specific interactions are you talking about in the episode that, like, you loved with or anything?
Aren't they talking by a cliff or something?
Yeah, because, like, they're just walking in the cliff, and, like, Tarkin's like, you Jedi are so stupid, idealistic, and then Anakin's like, you know what, I kind of agree, like, a lot of the times, like, we're not able to win the day because we have to be Jedi and stuff, and that if we took a more pragmatic approach, that, like, we could be winning this war. And Ahsoka is like, why the fuck do we have to save this guy? It's like,
he's the worst.
Yeah, like, yeah.
I love
like
that.
He's or something.
I love. I can't say that word on here.
It's
he's
like
a bad man.
It's like he's a German in 1940.
Yeah,
it's
like
that'll fix
literally
it.
authoritarian. And like, even at the end of the episode, he's like, "I'll see you around, Anakin." And then like of course, like the Darth Vader theme plays in the background.
they love, like, they have like a button for that. It's like on a talk show where they want to play a sound effect. They have a button for that when they were making this. I'm convinced.
It's so great.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. I love that Tarkin validates Anakin, like, as the one Jedi that he kind of, other than maybe Peel, who was the master he served for, who's now, I guess,
Yeah,
not
he dies.
alive.
Anakin
And then like there's a
has-
whole scene with Ahsoka, and he's like, just be. It doesn't matter, Ahsoka, if you were supposed to be here or you're not. You're here now, and you're gonna serve a purpose. Tells us some code. Dies.
Yeah.
Like, Anakin-
Cryptography. Yeah.
Anakin has always been a fascist. Like, literally, that's the whole point of the conversation with, like,
In the meadow, remember? We were
Yeah.
talking about that on the Attack
I
of the
don't think the
Clones
system
podcast.
works.
Yeah.
well, would you do about it? I'd slaughter all those who oppose me.
Yeah, it's really a match made in heaven. Those
Well,
two.
if it works. It's like,
And then she goes, you silly Billy.
she thinks
Maybe
he's
she
joking.
wasn't- Maybe she wasn't that great a politician if she really couldn't. She didn't realize she was dating a fascist.
Yeah.
That's
It
like
sounds
if
like a
AOC.
bad
I do
TV
kind
show.
of like that
Oh my God.
they go into how showing a little bit of how dysfunctional their relationship is later on in the show.
Mhm.
If somebody covers the Rush Clovis arc in season
Oh
6,
yeah, we should totally.
one of
I call Pong Krell.
one of my more interesting episode watches is the one where he beats the shit out of Rush Clovis, and he's like, why don't you put your lightsaber down and fight me like a man? And he's like, it'll be my pleasure. And he like the Imperial March is like, going to town. It's a moment. Yeah.
But also, Car, anything else about your episodes?
yes.
Yes. Ahsoka, Tarkin, characters just dying.
Yeah.
ChatGPT had this to say:
Ooh.
the sacrifice and deaths of these characters highlight the damages and risks associated with the mission and contribute to the overall tension and sense of urgency. Thank you, ChatGPT.
So war is war.
When the characters
War is
die, it
hell.
shows how dangerous things are. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad people are considering replacing writers for this.
Yeah, no, and they're definitely going to try to replace it with AI, and it's going to go horribly.
It's not even literally there's talks going on right
Oh
now.
no, like
because
they're
of the
going
writers'
to
strike.
try. They're going to. It's like them striking is going to make that happen faster, and then they're going to fail faster, and then maybe there's hope. Maybe.
Help me,
Please.
Lord, help me.
Please.
You're my only hope.
For the love of God.
Anyway.
Yeah. Citadel's pretty cool. As like a child, this was like my favorite arc.
Really?
Like me and
Wow.
my brother would replay the one scene where like they rescue Captain Tarkin and Master PL, and now like Obi-Wan and his team are gonna go on a distraction mission, and they ended up just like blowing up part of the Citadel with a bunch of bombs. For some reason, that scene was like really exciting to both me and my brother, and we would replay the
terrorism.
explosions. Yeah, because like
Nice.
everybody loves a little bit of domestic
Boom.
terrorism.
Michael Bay.
Watching it again, it's probably not my favorite arc, but it was like I enjoyed it still. Like I didn't feel like I was wasting my time, especially like there was decent amounts of action, and then there's like these quieter moments where we're getting to hear from Tarkin, and like it was definitely pretty enjoyable.
I watched it in January, and it was again wasn't like the best thing in the
Yeah.
Clone Wars, but I think it does a lot of nice character
Yeah.
work with
It's pretty cool.
Ahsoka, Anakin, and with the Tarkin stuff you mentioned, but especially Ahsoka and Anakin with
Yeah.
just her proving herself. I
Yeah,
think they
her
highlight
like
that a
really
little.
wanting to prove herself
with,
that is like a very big part.
Plo Koon at the beginning, I think is that
Yeah,
a
yeah,
plot
and then
point?
she's like, I really want to go on the mission, but Anakin won't let me.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, Anakin's your boss, I mean. And then she just makes up a lie about him letting her go on. But then at the end of like the 3 episodes, like Anakin asks Plo Koon, is like, did you say that she could go on this mission? And he's like, you know what? I guess I did. It's some
In a
sort of validation with
way.
Ahsoka from a certain
From-
point of view.
Oh my god. We'll talk about that.
Oh, we got things to say
God,
about
I
this.
can't wait for that one.
I'll be interested to see how
oh
we
my God.
talk about Return of the Jedi. But
Yeah,
that's actually something I'm going to be talking about in a minute, a little.
Well,
but, yeah.
the show is yours.
Thank you.
No, the show
To-
is Clone Wars.
To that end, I was gonna end with this, but because it's the episodes right after the Citadel, I just want to mention the way that season 3 ends. It ends with the Ahsoka getting captured arc, where she like gets captured by Trandoshans on Felucia, and then she gets hunted, and like she meets Chewbacca, and then they like kill Trandoshans. And then they go back to Coruscant, and like there's a scene where Anakin and Ahsoka reunite and everything, and the whole time Anakin's been like super anxious because he's really attached to her by this point, and he's got to be able to let her go. And this was all like, in a way, kind of in Yoda's mind at least, like the test to prove whether or not she being able to be independent would allow Anakin to kind of overcome the attachment problem he has, which I think answers the question why he was assigned Ahsoka in the beginning to begin with, which we talked a bit about many months ago at this point.
Still think it was a terrible idea.
Yeah. Oh, it obviously was blinded by their hubris to think that giving him more attachment would get him to overcome attachment. But I guess it's like, you know, I'm trying to think of a good analogy for it.
Trying to justify it in any way.
Like, it's kind of like the mentality of, like, I don't say this to be political, but like the science of vaccines. Like, to cure a disease, you administer like controlled amounts of the disease to like overcome it. Like, giving Anakin a source of attachment to try to hope it will get him to overcome it definitely did not work in this case. Like, a vaccine works, but like,
it's definitely like that.
That was a shit analogy.
No,
my
no,
bad.
no. I do kind of get what you mean, where it's like, oh, if we give him like this bit of it, then like, well, like it's literally how the body responds. Is like. That's what's amazing about vaccines and how like you get them to control. And everybody should take vaccines because the Mythical podcast officially endorses vaccines.
Yeah, do that.
But basically, like I see what you're saying, where it's just like, yeah, hey, like give them like this little bit, but it's less of like a vaccine and more like, hey, what if we just gave you cancer? What if that would cure your cancer?
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And it clearly does not work in the end.
The slightest.
But I think
it makes things worse.
It's a really interesting midpoint for the show, though, because season 3 is obviously around the halfway point between the end of season 5 with the Ahsoka arc that happens there, which we will eventually get to.
Yeah.
Which I really want to talk about. That one's going to be so fun.
We should definitely do an episode on like the unreleased season 6.
Actually,
season
7.
Season 7.
I haven't seen a lot of them other than the Utapau one, but we can definitely look into that. Yeah. It would be interesting. I know there's one with Cad Bane in there, but it would be really cool to talk about that. But this is like the midpoint leading up to that, where it shows for a second like there's false promise here, and it almost implies a better ending, but we all know that it's not going to happen. And it's the perfect ending to season 3. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Mortis. Mortis is a random series of 3 episodes that happens right before the Citadel, I think, in the listing, and it is really fucking trippy. It's kind of like the closest thing that Star Wars gets to a fever dream, I guess.
It's out weird. There. The only thing I can think of that's more out there is the 1 or 2 episodes from season 6 with Yoda, and like he's doing like real shit.
Yeah,
I think that's the only thing that maybe tops this.
Probably.
What happens in Mortis? I don't remember.
So Mortis is where a 2,000-year-old Jedi distress signal gets sent to the Jedi Council. And they're like, what the fuck? So they send Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan, because they do everything, to go investigate it.
Literally the only capable Jedi.
Yeah.
We have protagonisty stuff to do.
No, but actually though, so they go to meet with Rex, and they get to the coordinates, and like Rex isn't there, but like Rex is there, but he's not there. So they're like, what the fuck? And then they see this octahedron. It's like a pyramid kind of 3D shape in space, and it opens up and it swallows them, and it leads them to this like alternate world where everything's super forcey, and basically from this point on it's a full-on allegory, I think, for a lot of different things.
So weird.
Yeah, I have a couple things to say about it
like
regarding that.
I don't want to say it, but like the thing that always like shocked me about it. Go ahead.
So they meet these force beings basically that live here. It's the father, the son, and the daughter, because it's literally what they are in their respective family. They don't have any other names, and they lead them on. They meet the daughter first. She's like the representation of the light side, basically, at least at first it seems that way, and she's leading them to the father, who represents the balance, and then the son kind of like fucks shit up a little bit. He's like the dark side, the chaos. Initially, it's I think, portrayed more as like the chaos order thing, and as much as it is the light and dark, it quickly begins to devolve as they kind of grow to have characters and personalities of their own. But at a very, very base level, like, that's how it starts out. They get separated, so Anakin meets the father first and everything, and yada yada yada. Basically a long chain of events happens that leads to Anakin being tested by the father to see if he's the chosen one. This whole thing is kind of validation by the father, because he wants someone to replace him as the guide for this place. But in lieu of that fact, Anakin does prove himself to be the chosen one, and he literally is able to like control the son and the daughter and get them to let go of Anakin and Ahsoka, who they've taken captive. It's like yin and yang, kind of like the dark on one side, the light on the other. He does the retribution move from Battlefront 2, and he throws them down and everything.
I remember it being a really cool scene, just that.
Yeah, the sky is literally like rotating. It's as if like the darkness is like a veil, and it's like shifting just straight above him and everything. It's really, really a cool scene. It's one of the coolest visual scenes in the show, I would contend. It's really well done. And basically it's just to prove he's the chosen one. So this whole like vision seems, I say it's a vision, that's kind of a spoiler for one of my points, but it's debatable whether it's even real. And from there on, they try to leave. They can't leave. The son is trying to escape, so he basically tries to get them to give him their ship so he can get away, and he corrupts Ahsoka to get them distracted and everything. That doesn't work. He ends up killing the daughter by accident because he's trying to kill the father because he hates him. And then when he kills the daughter, he runs away out of anguish. So then they're trying to fix their ship, but things aren't going well, and Anakin's feeling sus. So he goes to the father and he's like, hey, what do? I feel like we shouldn't just leave you here with the son, because he's kind of angsty. He's going to try to do some nasty things. So he basically is told to follow his feelings. He sees Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon's like, yeah, trust your instincts here with this. So he goes into a volcano pit, and the son basically shows him his future in a really famous sequence that's been covered on YouTube a ton and everything, where he's like, it's very Mustafar-like all around him, and he just sees like scenes from Revenge of the Sith and Death Star blowing up Alderaan and everything, all animated
if I
in
remember,
Clone Wars style.
He does literally fucking just become the dark side.
Basically,
right
yeah.
He falls to the dark side, and then they just go, you're not actually.
So I'm going to talk about that because I have my things to say about that. But basically, the son shows him his future and shows him what he's going to become, and he's like, I'm going to do all these terrible things, and he's like, yes, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can change it. The future's malleable. So Anakin's like, okay, I'll do what you tell me to do. So he joins him for like 10 seconds, and then the father removes his memories and is like, he shouldn't have done that. We're never going to see what happened. And then the son appears, and they fight him, and the father's like, okay, so I can't kill you, so I'm just going to kill myself. And he stabs himself, and the son's like, fuck, because the father is his source of power. So then he gets all paranoid, and then Anakin impales him with a lightsaber. They kill everybody, and they leave.
Well, good job, guys.
And they wake up, and it's as if nothing happened. So the entire arc was kind of pointless. It's great, but not really. But I'll get to it.
Pointless.
Well, not pointless in like the literal sense of they're
Nothing
in the exact same place. Nothing technically happened. I believe this is entirely like, it's an allegory, obviously, but it's non-literal.
You believe it didn't literally happen.
It didn't literally happen, and the reason I have for that is a variety of things. One being when like they enter the shape that represents Mortis in the space, it kind of like does a white fade, you know, like a blast of light, which in film is like traditionally what's used for any kind of transition into like a flashback or a dream or getting out of something like that, and it always like goes into Anakin before it does it. So it starts out fading white right on Anakin, and when it ends, the last person it cuts to is Anakin, and then it fades white again, and we're back in the real world. So it's as if it's in Anakin's head exclusively. I don't know the implications of how Ahsoka and Obi-Wan would play into that, because they can't obviously enter his mind.
Do they say anything at like?
They don't give any explanation for it
No, I mean,
as to how it happens.
Like after all this happens and they're back, do Obi-Wan and Ahsoka go, man, what a crazy adventure we just went on?
They definitely like indicate through their body language that they just went on a trippy experience. I think there is a line about it, but I don't remember exactly what they say. But they all kind of agree that like because Anakin says to Rex, I can't possibly explain to you what just happened, and the other two are very well aware of like what happened.
So they probably just don't tell anyone about this.
Yeah, even if it's not just in Anakin's head and it just represents that, which I'll get to in a second, I don't think the events themselves actually happened. Like, Anakin didn't turn to the dark side, Ahsoka didn't temporarily turn evil, Obi-Wan didn't watch his student like fall to the dark side or anything, and these Force gods didn't really like die. And another reason for that is repeatedly through the arc they keep saying like the events that transpire here are going to have this trickle event through the galaxy. Like, if one of us dies, the whole Clone War is going to be affected by it or whatever.
And they kill all three of them.
And they kill all three of them. And nothing changes about the universe as a result of that. You'd think these like Force gods, as they're kind of described, would have a greater impact on the universe, and they just don't. So that's another reason that it's kind of clear that it's not real. Also, Anakin kind of gets like admin powers while he's here, because he's the chosen one. He can do like all these crazy things. Like, he's changing the time of day with the Force. Like, that's not something he can do as the chosen one.
Time set.
Yeah, he's changing the tick speed so that the sun just moves faster in the sky.
I wonder, is it possible that they went to a less so that like it didn't happen, but also not that like it actually happened? I wonder if they went to like a higher plane of existence.
That's also possible. That's kind of like the wills thing, right?
That's
that
what I was
Yoda
about
happens.
to say.
It could be like a Force dimension or something.
We never get very much context with this.
They keep it vague, and
Yeah.
for good reason and for bad, because it does allow for discussion. But I don't think it.
Bad is wait. I thought you were saying it's bad that they allowed for discussion.
No. It's good that they allow for discussion. It's bad that it's impossible to know, because this is a sci-fi universe where there's an explanation for basically everything, and the Force is usually the only thing.
Sci-fi universe.
Yeah, the Force is the thing that usually eludes that, but there's almost always an explanation for why. This is one of those things. Yeah, that's an example of taking it a little too far. But this is one of those things I feel like even just saying, yeah, that was a weird dream or something. Like, even if the characters might be wrong, like just addressing it a little bit would be nice. But it's totally fine. Another thing is
Totally fine.
the you know how in episode 6 Obi-Wan as a Force ghost is like to Luke, you gotta kill Darth Vader, like you gotta do this or that. So it's established that like the Force ghosts can give directions to characters and like have kind of wills of their own and everything. And maybe they might not know exactly what the future holds, but they've got that kind of understanding. Well, in this arc, both the father and the Force ghost of Qui-Gon are like, hey, you know, you could do, you just think about it, just kind of go into it and wing it. Like, they don't really provide him any kind of specific instruction or insight as to what's going to happen. And it kind of just feels like if they were really concerned about the whole universe being fucked over by his decision, they would give him a specific choice. Because, like, Obi-Wan wanted Luke to kill Vader because he didn't believe Vader was redeemable at that point. Like, he lost faith in him years ago.
Maybe Qui-Gon could let Obi-Wan know, is like, hey, the whole thing with your, like, apprentice, you know...
You might want to check
Anakin,
up on
you
him.
might want to see how he's doing.
Yeah.
Like emotionally.
Yeah.
They don't do that. But that's why I think, at least in a condensed state, why this isn't real. And I prefer it not to be real, because it's just some of the shit that happens in this arc is so strange that it would make sense to be like something they experience mentally, or even just as a representation for us as the viewer of their emotional state or something, or a revelation they might have, a discovery they might have. I think that's more compelling anyway, but
I'm gonna make a weird comparison.
Okay.
I feel like the way that you're talking about this, it feels a lot like I don't know how much Adventure Time you've ever watched.
Not a ton.
They have like a few like episodes. They're like animated in like a different style, and I believe those are non-canon, even like within the show. And I believe the point is like, this is just like an expression of an idea that we want to get across.
Yes, exactly.
Like, they do one about like the cycle of food and whatnot, and like how that goes, and like the Earth and whatever. So it's literally like Finn and Jake are birds, and they eat worms, and then they become the worms, and then they become and they eat plants as the worms, and then they're eaten by the birds, and then they become the plants or I might have this backwards, but like literally, it's like they become the thing they eat, and then they become once again the thing that ate them, and then they keep going around like that, and it's like about like that higher idea of just like what is it like to exist and like live within this, and it's kind of similar to that, and you're right, it's like a really weird set of episodes that decides to like go real high concept with all of this.
Yeah,
that is
it's
an interesting
crazy
thing for Adventure Time.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I was also what I was saying is like it's a real weird high concept to randomly pull in this show that doesn't usually do like high concepts.
Yeah, it's actually on the Reddit chain I looked at afterwards just to get. So it was a good comment. Someone actually
On Reddit?
compared it. Yes, a lot of the Reddit things I look up for Clone Wars are generally pretty. It's usually one comment and like 2 replies. It's not a long chain of like people raging because I guess Clone Wars is so like favorably recognized. To the Adventure Time thing, yeah, I get that vibe about it. It's not that it's non-canon, but it feels like.
I don't think the Clone Wars structure would allow
back.
something to be non-canon in like an episode.
No, it wouldn't. It just because this was also made at a time where canonicity was more vague, and there was the expanded universe. This was before Disney started calling things legends and stuff. So like, canonicity wasn't as much of a concern for people.
Times.
Yeah. But basically, to that end, I now can talk about where people might misread this a lot, because I hear a lot of people claiming like, okay, yeah, so the father represents this character and the daughter represents this character and the son is this guy, and it's like, no, like you can't put a pin on like one character being another character, because what happens is you notice that like Mortis does this thing where it takes a line from one of the movies or something, and it's like this character says this line, look, it's a reference, like when the son is dying after being betrayed, or right before he gets stabbed, actually, the father, having just stabbed himself, gets the son to come over, and the son like reveals that he does still have good in him, and the father's like, yeah, I always knew there was good in you, which is obviously paralleling being a parallel to fuck it, Luke saving Vader and everything and recognizing the good in him, very clearly like invoking that. I have another one written down just to develop it. I've done what is right or what is wrong, depending on your point of view, is something that the son says, which
best
is
line in Star Wars.
Yeah. Another reference to that, because we can't get away from that. The son says, "I hate you." Don't need to elaborate on that.
What a reference.
The son also said, it's mostly the son who's saying this stuff, in case you haven't caught on. He says, "You are mine now," to Ahsoka when he takes her captive or whatever, which is like Palpatine saying to Luke, you know, you like your father are now mine. By the way, to compliment the son, this was Sam Witwer's first like in show or movie performance for Star Wars. I know he did Starkiller in The Force Unleashed, which I believe was before this.
It was. It was.
Yes, but this was like what got him into doing the Maul and other roles later on too and stuff. And I guess like his portrayal of the son, it does sound a lot like Maul. He kind of did a similar thing. He really played around with his speech and stuff, and it's wonderful.
He's such an awesome guy. Like, have you watched interviews with him yet?
Yes.
Like,
he knows his
like he's
stuff.
actually like a Star Wars nerd. It's awesome.
Yeah, and he really explains things really clearly. But one of my favorite lines of him was when he's talking about like his attempt to kill the father. He's like, he was just so selfish and he was taking too long to die, so I just decided to move things along. And the way he says it, he just says it with like such a little care in the world. Like he could not give a shit that he just tried to kill his father. And he's like, yeah, I tried to kill him, but you know, whatever, it's fine.
So I started shooting.
It's great. But that I went on a tangent. I do that a lot. Basically what I was trying to say was, when you try to like slap somebody into the role of that character like you would in a lot of allegories, you lose the meaning of this, because the whole point of Mortis, I think, is it's not like taking away the standards of like the black and the white or the light and the dark or the Sith and the Jedi or anything, but it's kind of establishing that characters can be in a really complex emotional state and still be like in the position they're in. So for instance, like people might liken the daughter to Obi-Wan because they're both on the light side of the Force, but you also have to recognize the daughter is in service to the father half the time, like, you know, how kind of like the Jedi are upheld to like their higher code and everything. So it's a little more complex than just saying, yeah, light side, whatever.
Yeah, it's not a perfect fit.
It gets more
Close.
complicated. Yeah, like it gets more complicated when you look at Ahsoka and Anakin, because Ahsoka does eventually leave the Jedi Order, and she's not a Sith though because she does that. She never subsides to the darkness just because she's not in the light. Like, people say she's a gray Jedi, which I don't think is technically correct.
It's also
but
not a thing that's ever been stated. Gray Jedi is not a terrible idea, at least in my opinion. But, like, it's never a stated thing, so we shouldn't be throwing it around like it's...
Yeah, a lot of people tend to just slap it on her, and I have issue with that. But it's really Anakin where that whole idea falls apart, where you can't just say, like, oh, yeah, the daughter dying is kind of like Padme dying when Anakin eventually kills her. It mirrors the event, but it is not an allegory for the event specifically. It's just taking cues from the outside universe, almost as if just to be like, yeah, it's kind of implying that the stakes here on Mortis are for Anakin's eventual choices that he's going to make, but it's not actually stating what's going to happen or making any intentions about it, which is interesting.
From what I remember, I feel like a lot of it is that a lot of it comes down to, like, okay, what will happen? Like, it feels like something that's, like, set in stone, like a test run. Like, things maybe could have gone different on Mortis. Like, I think that if, like, it was almost like the Force's way of going, like, okay, Anakin, let's see what's going on here.
Yeah,
It feels like it's almost like asking, like, beforehand, like, do you think this will happen? Let's see Anakin put in this position. And then they ultimately come to, like, oh, guess he's sort of fated for this. Because the whole bouncing back and forth of, like, who is and who isn't. I agree. Like, I don't think it's anybody specific. I think the conflict there is what's the most important element. That there is this conflict of light and darkness, and light and darkness wanting to both be the thing that balances. That thinking one like it's. Here's the other thing. It's the idea that these two things are in balance. But I think what is also important to note is that darkness is what causes the death of imbalance, or the death of balance, because I have always viewed darkness not as... A lot of people, I remember being told this before, where it's like, oh, in order to have balance, there has to be light and dark. No. I don't think that's how Star Wars views it.
Star Wars, because the Sith are the epitome of balance, so getting rid of the Sith is necessary for balance. Yeah.
And I always use one thing as the prime example of, like, what it comes down to. Kyber crystals. Old canon was red is just a color that the Sith used. New canon, and this is where I think, like, it really expands this, and this is where, like, a sort of rule is defined in the universe. Those crystals are not and will never be red inherently.
They have to be bled.
Yeah.
They have to be. And what is that? Does that process come about normally? No, it has to be man-made, and it goes back to, like, the environmental roots of Star Wars also, where it's something that is actively done. It's not natural.
Yeah, like a form of industrialization, but kind of smallified, minimized, It's
the idea of, like, somebody getting in the way of the balance of everything, and so that's where I think, like, the light and the dark, a lot of this is that allegory of just, like, how to deal with this. Dark had always been fucking causing problems. The light didn't think that this could be a thing that happens, and then it ultimately causes the death of balance.
Yeah.
It is this larger metaphor for just, like, dealing with these ideas. I think what it comes down to is it puts our characters in this sort of scenario to literally have... It's like if you had the concept of, like, right and wrong in front of you, and, like, there was a guy that, like, he appeared and he's like, hi, my name is right, and there's another guy that's like, hi, my name is wrong, and, like, it's this weird way of interacting with them to go, like, all right, I don't like right, I don't like him as a person, but if he is everything that rightness is, there's something wrong with me, right? And so, like, that's what I find interesting about these episodes, is if these are not technically full characters, they're allegories, they're allegories. I meant to say allegorical, but then I switched to allegories. So allegories.
It's a word kind of day.
Switch, like, if they're just purely like these allegories for these concepts, isn't that so interesting to put allegory characters? This is getting down to my like theater-ness right now. Isn't it so interesting to put allegory characters right next to characters that are explicitly not allegories?
Yeah, it is really cool. I do love that they do that, because it's kind of it's
really
almost
cool.
like the characters talking to some higher power that they could never have access to.
Yeah,
That's
and I
meta.
wonder if that was supposed to be the Wills or something.
Maybe, yeah. I like that point. I also think to a degree that the trio represents the states of mind of Anakin too. And I think that that's probably more on the mark for what they were going for, because Anakin is really, as I mentioned earlier, like, it begins with the fade on him and it ends with the fade on him. It's his story. It's about his being the chosen one nature and about his eventual choices. And I think a huge highlight of this is you can be a good person and make bad choices, or you can be a bad person and make a good choice. And the nature of your allegiance is not always contingent on that choice, which is, I guess, a huge part of what made Darth Vader's choice, like, you know, what redeemed him, but also didn't forgive him of all the crimes he committed too. Like, he was still, at the time, he was a Sith Lord, but he made a good choice, and that changed his mind and made him realize he was wrong, and finally brought forth all of that guilt.
Like, it's not all set in stone.
Yes,
it's not
exactly.
All destiny that, like, you can change things.
And the father says basically just that, actually. Like, he says, you know, the future isn't something that's predetermined. As much as it might seem, there are events that are going to happen. And that's something that I kind of maybe have issue with sometimes with, like, storytelling in this way, is there is a future, obviously, that is already planned out for us as the viewer.
Yeah, for us, it is predetermined, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, so, like, seeing Anakin
like
see
Anakin
himself as
not
Vader.
meeting Grievous.
Yeah, seeing him being Vader in the future, like, that is kind of, for us, set in stone. But in this universe, at this moment in time, technically it's not. Technically there are other, for lack of a better word, timelines that could happen where Anakin didn't turn into Darth Vader if something else had happened.
Weird, 'cause
you know?
that kind of puts us in the position of not like God, but as like someone who's like viewing this out of
Like
out
the
of
Watcher
time.
from What
out
If or
of
something.
time. Yeah, like the Watcher. That's
Yeah.
actually that's probably better. That like we're seeing all these events happen, and like in that moment, it could be changeable, but we know that event like there's still that capacity for change, even though Anakin doesn't, and all of these events still do happen. It still turns into Darth Vader.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
interesting.
God, thinking about it now, just the idea of, so like Anakin's fall, technically Anakin goes dark side 2 times then. Both times are like for, hey, I want to make sure that somebody's okay. But here's the thing, him in this position, it's more so that he's trying to stop what will happen when he turns to the dark side. Does the brother go, hey, you're going to turn to the dark side and do all of these things?
No, he actually says, which is a bit of a plot hole with his reasoning, actually, I think, for us at least. He's like, you know, it doesn't have to be this way. Like, he says yes, but it doesn't have to be this way. So he kind of does acknowledge it, but he's also like, but, you know, you could join me, and we're going to end up doing all that stuff anyway, kind of. Like, that's really the implication of it, because obviously he makes it clear, like, we can kill this emperor you're seeing in your visions, which I actually think would be really, really fucking cool.
By the way, it's Palpatine.
Yeah. What if
I
that
would
happened?
really like a Star Wars What If.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
fun.
my god, that would be amazing.
It would be so fun.
Imagine if
So
that's the
fun.
next season of Visions.
I would be okay with that.
I need to watch the first season of
I
Visions.
might
Yeah,
actually
a lot of
watch
the episodes
Visions
are pretty good.
then.
A lot of them are very interesting.
Like, what if Qui-Gon didn't die, which would mean the entire rest of the saga wouldn't happen?
it'd be
What
so
if
fun.
what if Anakin joined the son and stuck with him, and the father
think
hadn't intervened? You know,
Star Wars Theory did some kind of
He
What
did.
If episodes.
Why do we have to talk
Star
about
Wars
it?
Yeah,
Theory
that's
does
the
a lot
thing.
of
I don't.
things.
Star Wars, I watched those things as well, like when before he went full.
When he was in his prime.
When he wasn't an asshole.
Yeah, yeah.
He's never gonna watch this. We can say whatever we want about
Yeah,
him.
we can.
Dude
Really
sucks.
Really, really annoying.
The way that I see it, though, it's Anakin's, like, his fear of the future, which is represented in the movies as literally, like, getting visions of the future, which he shares with Luke as a characteristic that they have. But also, like, what actually drives him to the dark side is the guilt resulting from that, which is something the Revenge of the Sith does highlight really well. And you get little sprinkles of in the OT. Like, the fact that he sees that and his first instinct is, like, holy shit, I'm gonna do all these things. Like, he obviously believably could, given all the shit he's already pulled and all the war crimes he's broken and all the people that have died. Yeah, the Tusken camp. I mean, if that wasn't indicative of it, I don't know what. Also, it looks like he's force choking younglings in the vision, too. I just want to point that out. I vaguely noticed that before. It looked a lot like they were kids. I'm just putting that out there. Anyway, I personally think, like, in the end, the meaning of these 3 episodes is Anakin's... It's like 2 things, really. Anakin and his interaction with the Force and his, like, 2 sides of himself, for lack of a better way to put it. Like, the light and the dark is really reductive, but kind of that. The side of him that is compassionate and motivated by love, and the side of him that just kind of enjoys the thrill of the anger. Because, I mean, he is a villain, and as Vader, he does take pleasure in the shit he does. So it's kind of hard not to believe that before he was Vader, that side of him would be there, that, like, sadistic side. And this whole arc maybe is the first and maybe last chance he gets to really engage with those 2 parts of himself in retrospect and actually, like, sit and think, you know, can I find a way to make these 2 things work in balance and master my control of my emotions, which is what Qui-Gon and the Father wanted him to do and what he failed at doing, obviously. And I think each episode highlights one of the aspects really nicely. Like, the second one, episode 16, it's like the interaction of the daughter and the son is a lot like the Jedi Order and Palpatine, where it's the Jedi are so unwilling to, like, act on their suspicions about Palpatine until literally the last possible moment, and likewise they're also feeding Palpatine with all the lore that he needs to be able to take him down. Like, they're giving him the resources military wise, they're giving him all this clout as a politician, and the daughter likewise is providing Obi-Wan with the dagger that can literally kill all of them, and then she proceeds to be something that the father, like, she steps in the way of the father to lead to her death, which then breeds its own type of chaos. Did the accident of that. And everything that she does bothers the father, the balance, the Jedi overstepping, whatever. And likewise, in the next episode, I think it's the highlight is the dark side, the sun, the error of that way. And I'm also getting really fucking tired of talking about this. So, in conclusion,
Season 3 was pretty good.
Yeah,
Season
it's
3
pretty
was
awesome.
good.
I liked it.
I think
I watched a bunch of episodes, more than just the ones I talked about, and man, it's really when this really feels like Clone Wars is, like, really hit the peak. Like, or at least, like, this is when they hit their stride, rather.
Yeah,
I think in Season 2 they had a couple strides. There were definitely a couple places of shortcoming, but, like, Geonosis was a high point. I won't deny that Geonosis was really strong, but I do agree.
Like this is where we're like, you know what? Like, this is the thing I remember a lot.
Yeah, like, your arc especially was a really strong start. The Citadel's just classic Clone Wars. Mortis is a really nice, different take on Star Wars that people still debate to this day. You know,
it's really one of the awesome parts of Clone Wars that they can just do shit like this.
Yeah. The whole anthology structure really lends it to just kind of being really creative in ways that shows today don't really get the chance to do as much, because it's all about, like, following a single character. Or even Rebels is its different structure because it's following a band of rebels, but, like, it's not any story they want to tell as much so because they have to keep it about that cast, you know.
If I had to, like, rank this, like, it would be pretty high, but it doesn't have Bombad Jedi in it, so I don't really know how I feel about the season.
Or Cad Bane. Cad Bane isn't in this season.
Overall, I think, like, if those two, like, if it had those elements, 10 out of 10. It doesn't, so 4 out of 10.
We
is
also
what I'd
didn't
say.
rank. Oh damn. We never ranked the first 2 seasons either. I don't think.
I don't think we need to necessarily.
I think it'd be better to rank the show at the very end with everything in consideration. Would be a little more fair.
Like the seasons or like just the show?
The whole show,
We're ranking it among
especially because we
movies.
haven't.
Is
Yeah,
that
I
a
don't
fair
know.
Comparison?
Yes, because I want to call it the best thing.
Okay.
No, it's not fair at all. But
Technically
it is the
not.
Best thing.
Ranked among the other shows, though, yeah. Like, I mean, IMDb has a rating for it, but I don't know if that makes it the standard that it can be.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, so
It's not like everybody can do that.
yeah, it's
IMDb scores are like the least trusted scores
yeah,
to me.
Rotten Tomatoes can be pretty weird
I-
too, though.
would say Rotten Tomatoes
Okay,
is probably
Rotten
worse.
Tomatoes is another rant that I'd have to go on. You need to give me like 30 minutes for that one.
I
Yeah,
can't do
think
that
we're
kind of
all
time.
out of ranting time.
My throat is actually sore from the amount of talking I've done,
No,
so
throat coat?
we need to end. Yeah, I don't know what it
You
is.
said
I
just
talk a lot.
silently playing Star Wars.
See, once we have Discord, we can cut all of that out.
That's true. Yeah, we can.
You could just mute me.
I could. Ouch. We're going to do seasons 4 and 5 in the very soon foreseeable future, whether they get posted in the very soon words.
Right in the middle of that, you sucked a dick.
That happens to the best of us.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it does.
Whether they are posted as soon as they are made is a question in another world. So we'll wait and see how that goes. But
Can we do
yeah.
Can we do a portion of the next episode of responding to comments that we think will happen?
I could have ChatGPT make up
Actually,
comments.
that would be yeah, sure.
I can feed it a transcript of one of our podcasts, and I can come up.
Oh
I can
God.
I can have it
Oh,
generate
God.
comments from YouTubers.
William's dick. William has a small
I
penis, probably.
Don't know if it would be
His
able to
lightsaber.
differentiate between different people.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Oh wait.
I have no idea how it would
Theoretically,
handle
what
this.
if we typed out a transcript of what we say, and then we name all of them so it then can have opinions
Okay.
on each
I'm
individual
expecting it's
person?
going to focus exclusively on that one comment you made about my breasts. I have a feeling that there's going to be a
It's
comment
been
generated just about that.
So long since I talked about your breasts.
Yeah.
That I don't even remember the
It's been
specific
too,
things
it's
I
been
said about
too
your
long,
luscious
William.
babs.
What are you doing?
Do we want to finish the episode?
No.
Yeah, let's
This forever.
This has been Mythical Podcast, chatting about Season 3 of The Clone Wars. We'll be back for Season 4 very soon. Thank you for watching.
Are we going to do promos this time around?
You have nothing new to promo, right?
I still stream on Twitch.
I
So
think you
no,
should stream
okay.
More regularly.
Connor,
I
you
have
got
to.
anything yet?
Nope.
Okay.
I might be streaming Garden of Bonbons, so like look out for that.
It's
like,
going to
on
be,
my VODs.
by the time this is up, that will have been history.
On my
Anyway, we'll see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.